Yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy Carson Fox, reluctantly bringing you another edition of Fox on Mountaineer, West Virginia Mountaineer Sports. And I just say that as reluctantly, not as a way to say that I don't like making these videos. In fact, that's why I did this. This is an opportunity really to be therapeutic and really cathartic, it feels like for me. But I just wish that especially over these last few years, that I was bringing you these videos with happy news to say that it was, 2006 all over again, and West Virginia, led by Pat White and Steve Slayton, were running up all and down the field, scoring 40 points per game. We were singing country roads after every single victory, and it's an up-and-coming, ascending program into the upper echelon of college football, and unfortunately, that's just not the case. So after another loss, now the third loss on the 2023 season, a loss 48-34 to Oklahoma State on homecoming, it feels like a low point. I know that we're only 7 games into the season, still so much still ahead. On the table, still much to be won for this West Virginia football teams, and the story's not completely written just yet, so it might be something that we're looking back on 5 weeks from now, and a totally different tune, a totally different feel and vibe to this entire program. But right now, that's not it, especially amongst the fan base. And I think I'm feeling it. I know some fans are also feeling it out there if you just check through social media, and it's just kind of frustrating. So I'll start off and give a recap as best I can for you. This one's a little bit detailed, so definitely going to go longer than 2 minutes of what I try to aim for in these recaps. But I'll give you some analysis and then just kind of give you my thoughts to just be cathartic and get it off my chest, because I'm struggling with necessarily knowing how to feel. So that's why I kind of want to do this video, get some input, get the comments, so leave them on here. But all right, let's just get into the recap. So this will be chronologically, so starting out from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. Once again, a 48-34 final by Oklahoma State. So starting off, West Virginia received the opening kickoff, went 3 and out on its first offensive series, punted. Returner Brendan Presley muffed the punt. The ball was recovered by Hudson Clement, and the Mountaineers had the ball at the Oklahoma State 33. Unfortunately, 2 plays later, Cole Taylor fumbled the ball on one bounce right into Oklahoma State linebackers Kendall Daniels' hands, and the ball was right back in the hands of the Cowboys. So Oklahoma State drove right down the field, thanks in large part because of the first of many of Ollie Gordon running backs' big runs on the day. And West Virginia was able to get a red zone stop, and Oklahoma State's kicker, Alex Hale, kicked a field goal, 3-0. Oklahoma State. Next series for the Mountaineers, on 3rd and 1 at the WVU 35, Garrett Green threw into coverage looking for Devin Carter and was intercepted by cornerback Corey Black, who brought it back to the WVU 39. 6 plays later, it was another Ollie Gordon touchdown run that gave the Cowboys a 10-0 lead right out of the gate. So next series for the Mountaineers, 14 plays, 75 yards, aided by a pass interference call that gave them a first down on 3rd and 16 at their own 35-yard line. Justin Johnson scored the Mountaineers' first touchdown. Then after a Cowboys 3 and out that included a deflected 24-yard punt, Green in the offense went 43 yards on 7 plays. A 34-yard field goal tied the game at 10. So West Virginia right back in it, but Oklahoma State rebutted with a field goal of their own before arguably West Virginia's best play of the day. On 3rd and 4 from the Oklahoma State 45, Green found Carter, who they were both in sync on an improvised in and up route, and scored on a long touchdown pass play, 17-13, which proved to be the score at the half, despite another 31-yard field goal attempt by Alex Hale, who looked good whenever you watched it a few times on instant replay, but was called no good. So Mountaineers go into the half with a 4-point lead. West Virginia's first 2 offensive series in the third quarter started inside its own 10-yard line. So despite getting Oklahoma State off the field on downs and then an Anthony Wilson interception, the Mountaineer offense just truly could not get going in the third quarter. So some missed opportunities there for the old Gold and Blue. Ollie Gordon then got things going, rushing for 35 yards on Oklahoma State's next drive that ended in a Jaden Bray 5-yard touchdown, 20-17 Oklahoma State. But WVU countered right back thanks to a beautifully thrown 32-yard completion to E.J. Horton, 24-20 Mountaineers, inside 90 seconds left in the third quarter. The WVU defense came up with a big stop and forced Oklahoma State to punt on their own 29-yard line, and this is where you thought, okay, this is when the dam is finally going to break for West Virginia. They can go up 2 scores and win the game. But unfortunately, no. Andrew Wilson-Lamp careened into Preston Fox on the coverage right as Fox was about to make the fair catch. Oklahoma State recovered the muff punt at the WVU 27, scored easily thanks to Ollie Gordon, and pulled back ahead with the momentum 27-24, and now in the fourth quarter. So the WVU offense countered with a field goal to tie up the game. And here's another killer. Second play of the drive at the Oklahoma State 29-yard line. Gordon ran for 5 yards out of bounds, but was grabbed by his face mask by Beanie Bishop and then tackled while being out of bounds by Ben Cutter. So 35 yards of field position lost by the Mountaineers on the play. Then on 3rd and 3 at the WVU 29, Brennan Presley turns really just a simple little toss pass out into the flat to him, got by the last 2 defenders who had to make a play on Presley, otherwise he was going to score. He evades them, goes 29 yards on a run and scores 30, making it 34-27 Oklahoma State. So down now 7, West Virginia, 4th and 2 at the 50-yard line, 4:25 left to play in regulation. Instead of handing the ball off on a read option play, Garrett Green decides to keep it, dead in the water, wasn't able to get it, turnover on downs. Ollie Gordon busts one to the house, 46 yards, 41-27, now 14-point lead for the Cowboys. Thankfully, though, Green and the WVU offense went on a drive that was aided by double-digit completions to Traylon Ray and Preston Fox, as well as a 14-yard run by Green, capped off by a C.J. Donaldson touchdown run, 41-34 Oklahoma State. Neal Brown decided to have the ball onside kicked, and the kind of kick coverage WVU deployed, there was absolutely no chance in which it seemed as if Devin Carter was taking on 4 Oklahoma State receivers on the play. 2 plays later, Ollie Gordon, 53 yards to the house, capping it off, the scoring for the day, 48-34 Oklahoma State. So a lot of stuff happened. It wasn't just your 17-6 circle the wagons kind of backyard brawl game that we saw in September. Instead, a lot of action, a lot of scoring. Trying to break it down there as quick as I could for you. So my analysis of this game is you got this feeling right out of the gate, just like some of the many earlier games that we saw this season, and we've now seen it for 4.5 seasons, is Neal Brown strategizes every single game for the Mountaineers like boxing matches, in which WVU will never win with a first quarter knockout play. Instead, he likes to run the offense and handle a game, in which you wear down an opponent for 14 rounds, and then, translating the analogy from boxing over to football, where West Virginia is going to deal the late blow. West Virginia's worn the opponent down for 4 quarters, holding the ball, working a lot of clock, tiring them out, forcing a lot of different substitutions, so you don't necessarily have your first stringers in there by the fourth quarter, and that's how you're going to win by decision in a way, and either score a late touchdown, win on a field goal, so on and so forth. So I was just the way that it started, even just the very first series, very first few play calls, run up the middle by C.J. Donaldson gets you about 6. Run again to Donaldson gets you 2. 3rd and 1, they throw it out into the flat against a Devin Carter who was just about to be attacked by a defensive back and not even have a chance really, I feel like, at the first down, even if he caught it. Bad pass by Green, incompletion, and you punt. And you're just like, why? Why does that have to be every single drive for West Virginia in a game? Why can't it be different? Why can't this game be any different? So it's just Groundhog Day every single time you watch a game. So then, of course, the way that it goes Then you get the muff punt gift, an absolute gift by Oklahoma State fumbling the ball, goes right into Hudson Clement's hands. And what do you know, 2 plays later, like, why can't West Virginia have nice things? Cole Taylor fumbles the ball on an easy little, play action pass out in the flat that he scored the touchdown in the backyard brawl. Instead, doesn't hold the ball tight enough, gets poked out, fumbles, and goes right to an Oklahoma State defender. So not only do they capitalize on that, but then Garrett Green throws an interception into coverage instead of finding a wide open, cutting across the middle Hudson Clement on the play. Instead decides to throw to Carter into coverage, intercepted. They go down and they score 10-0. So it's just like, you just have this sour taste in your mouth already that here we go again. You're not going to win convincingly. You put yourself behind the 8 ball being down 2 scores, and you're just scratching your head like, how can West Virginia shoot itself in the foot more so than starting out in that kind of manner? I was really, really impressed, and I got to give a lot of credit so that this video isn't just necessarily doom and gloom the entire time, for the way that West Virginia really bounced back and battled back in the second half. The improvised route by Carter from Green on the in and up route, well, that was sensational, and I really like the strides that E.J. Horton is making to become this team's 3rd or 4th option in the passing attack. The touchdown that he had, beautifully thrown ball in stride, and he had good enough speed to get behind the secondary and score. So that was nice. I really like Justin Johnson as well. 14 carries, 72 yards, and a touchdown. Color commentator RG3 kept saying over and over again, it seemed as if that Johnson had fresh legs, and he definitely looked explosive in that change of pace kind of back role that Jaheim White had been playing for this team for the last few weeks, and Johnson, finally 100% healthy, goes out there and took advantage of it. And then I was critical of him in that very pivotal play in the 3rd quarter, I think it was, of the Penn State game, week 1. But this was the best game by Preston Fox of his West Virginia career at the wide receiver position. 4 catches only on the day, but each of them came with a high degree of difficulty in high leverage situations. I mean, that one that he had early on in the game on 1st down, which he got pushed from behind by the Oklahoma State defender, falling down, and it was a perfectly placed ball by Green, hit him right in stride in the chest as he was going down, makes the catch. He was just excellent on the day. I was really, really impressed by Preston Fox and what he brought to the table. I'm really critical of this offense for not getting out of its own end zone in the 3rd quarter. Lost the battle of field position there, which gave Oklahoma State a touchdown. I was impressed with the way that, once finally it seemed like the dam broke for Oklahoma State that way, and in scoring a touchdown after West Virginia had the ball inside its own 10-2 possessions. West Virginia scored right back. So it was just kind of like you were playing with the field position, playing with the clock there, and then, you let Oklahoma State score, but then you get them right back. So in a way, I'm critical, but I'm impressed at the same time of how they were able to respond so quickly. So that's why I'm just confused at, how can you not pick up a couple of 1st downs, use clock, manage it well, get some 1st downs, and you just didn't do that. You perhaps don't even get into that kind of a situation in which you're punting the ball, giving short fields to Oklahoma State if you can get one single 1st down. I think that's everybody's goal once you're inside your own 20, is to just get one single 1st down, and West Virginia didn't do it either time. So really, those were really missed opportunities. But I guess the 4th quarter of this game is where I can spend most of our time for this video, and where I was immediately critical post-game on Twitter was the Andrew Wilson botched punt return. I mean, what the hell was he doing? He's been a reckless player this season, and I don't know the details of, things were talked about on Twitter, on Friday with Lance Dixon and potentially getting kicked off the team. I don't know what that necessarily had to do with, but with the way that Lance Dixon play happened last week on special teams, and now same thing happening with Andrew Wilson-Lamp. If it had anything to do with gambling or anything to do with gambling or betting on this team, like, that needs to be, I feel like, investigated, because that was just such a reckless play that you can't help but feel as if there was some sort of ulterior motive or something that just goes beyond the scope of everyday play out there when you're going 100 miles an hour down on, and the other Oklahoma State players stop. They stopped, and granted, number 10 of Oklahoma State, I've watched the replay enough times, does push, just ever so slightly, does push Andrew Wilson-Lamp into Preston Fox. Not so much so to say that the push was the cause of the launching into Andrew Wilson-Lamp. I just think it took it from a 80% of a hit to a 90% of a hit with that additional push. And Lamp just drills head-to-head what it seemed like targeting into Preston Fox. I don't know what he was doing. Like, that was so pivotal in that moment to potentially get that ball in the fourth quarter, 24-20, to work your way down the field after you had just, previously put together a nice offensive series and scored, go up 2 scores, win the ball game. So I cannot emphasize enough how critical that play was and how stupid that play was at the same time. And for that reason, you gotta do your due diligence, I feel like, into, or the coaching staff, players, because that has no place on, and I think this has no place in a game. And I think Andrew Wilson-Lamp has just about used up every single one of his gimmies to be seeing the field. That he's a guy that I'm putting an asterisk next on my 2024 roster of, you hope potentially he sees the transfer portal and West Virginia can fill his role somewhere elsewhere, externally or even internally with some of the young guys, because that costs you a game, in my opinion, that play. Number 2, the defense just couldn't stop Ollie Gordon. I looked up this stat after the fact that only once in the history of over 100 years of West Virginia football had West Virginia given up any more yards rushing to a single individual player by an opponent. And ironically, it was just recently. It was 2017 against Kansas. Khalil Herbert ran for 291 yards. So just, 9 more than Ollie Gordon did in this day. And 9 carries, 149 yards, and 3 touchdowns alone in the fourth quarter. So how many completions on the day did Alan Bowman have on passes that traveled 15 more yards through the air? I think 1. And looking through the play-by-play, it was in the second quarter. It was that 29-yard pass to Talon Shretton on a backwards post to the WVU 15. He kind of streaked down the field, cut toward the sideline, caught the ball over his shoulder, and fell out of bounds. Beautifully thrown ball, well-made play, good catch, well-made play. So, but what I'm saying is, Oklahoma State just nickeled and dimed you down the field. So why did Jordan Leslie, the defensive coordinator, not call for stacking the box more? And how could this defense not contain Ollie Gordon? I said that all, during the preview show, that he is the star player. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew that Ollie Gordon was Oklahoma State's offense. So to just let him completely run wild, was this defensive line that worn down? I know these linebackers are without Trey Lathan. I know they don't have Josiah Trotter, the highly high quality 4-star recruit that tore his ACL in spring camp. Where's Tyrick Austin Cave? Where is is Jai Favaris? Can he give this defense anything? These linebackers, why does it always fall on Lee Koba and now a true freshman Ben Cutter? That's the best we got? The defensive line, just getting pushed around, and Gordon breaks into the secondary and he's gone. That was bad. That was really, really bad. That hurts. And then just the last thing I'll say in my analysis is just so much crap that didn't go West Virginia's way that I just don't know really what to say anymore. So, for example, I got like 4 points here from the fourth quarter alone. West Virginia has first and goal at the Oklahoma State 9 after a 30-yard gainer by Justin Johnson, down 24 or 27-24, and you only get 3 on the drive. You don't score there. Then later, the loss of the 30 yards due to 2 first personal fouls on the one single play by Koba who grabs Gordon's face mask, and then the personal foul late hit out of bounds in which Gordon should have won an Academy Award out there for faking it, but he gets called by this David Alvarez-led crew, and he gets called. So 35 yards of field position just poof on the play. So. And then, Green not handing the ball off on a 4th and 2, trying to take it himself, only to get stopped dead in the water. That just a play, goes back almost, I feel like, to the backyard brawl of last year on a 4th and, short situation. Give it to C.J. Donaldson. And he'd already done that earlier in the contest. And I think it was like a third down in short situation, which he knew he was getting the ball. And what do you know? He still gets the ball. So taking it himself, trying to be the hero. I love when Green's able to do it, and he comes up successfully. Unfortunately, he didn't come up successfully in a critical play and, down in distance. So that hurts. And then Danny King not doing the onside kicking because Michael Hayes got roughed and then injured on the point after the touchdown. So you don't have your guy who you're expecting to do the kicking, I think, in that kind of a situation. Or maybe he is your onside kicker. I don't know who's the better of the two in the onside kicking. But, I think he kicked it a little too soon. The guys weren't necessarily down the field. They bunched Devin Carter pretty much alone on one side and everybody else in kickoff coverage on one side. They were coming down the other side of the field toward Carter in the kickoff coverage, and it's basically Carter versus one guy after the ball's kicked, and King kicked it pretty much straight to Brendan Presley. So that was ugly. And I think, I don't know, the way that West Virginia's defense was playing at that point in time, 2 minutes and 36 seconds left to play. You still have all 3 of your timeouts with a short field kicking off from the 50. So, can you either, kick a touchback, so you keep them on, at Oklahoma State's 25-yard line, try and get them off in 3 plays, or try and, pooch it. Or they try and make some sort of a return, so you squib it. I don't know. That was just the worst case scenario was exactly what happened, and it manifested, and that after the touchdown run by Gordon was the dagger. So wrong play, wrong decision. You can't have it. So, I can be critical of how West Virginia started offensively, and that's kind of like my theme, I feel like, of the last several weeks, even going back to the TCU game, with how I think C.J. Donaldson's frustrated, the way that holes are just not opening up, that every time he's getting the ball, it's an obvious rushing down, and he's just not getting any sort of wiggle room to bust through for a big play, and he knows he's capable of it, and he's just not getting it, just having to settle for 4 to 6 yards, and that's what's killing his yards per carry average on the season. You can't give up almost 300 rushing yards to one player and expect to win. And the turnovers in and of themselves, I know you got 2 yourselves, but you lose the turnover battle once again. And neither of the interception by Wilson and then the muff punt on the first series, neither of those 2 turnovers turned into anything for you. So that hurts. And then ultimately, you can't have a kamikaze player cost you in a critical situation. And that's what that Andrew Wilson layup play felt like, was just a kamikaze. So I've been frustrated, not only just after this game, but for a long time. I know Mountaineer Nation is frustrated, not just from this game, but a long time. So it's difficult to enjoy Saturdays anymore because you know what you're going to go through. You're either going to go through a loss like we did with the Oklahoma State game, or you're going to go through a roller coaster of emotions and win at the final moment. So it's aged me. West Virginia's aged me. It's taken years off my life. And Neal Brown as head coach has had chance after chance after chance after chance to make changes and start winning. So what I'll say to all the fans who want to go after Neal Brown is you're going to get your answer here soon enough in the next month. Is either this team's going to take off from here and win 4 or more games the rest of the way out, or he's going to get canned. There's 2 ways of how this is going to go. And I still say that the goal for this season, I don't care necessarily about the way that the Big 12 is completely watered down this year. And you don't have to play Kansas State, you don't have to play Kansas, you don't have to play Texas, and you don't have to play Iowa State. So you're missing out on 4 of maybe the top 5 teams in the conference. But you're gonna get your answers. Either Neal Brown can get this team to 8 wins, or he's not, and we're talking about a new era of West Virginia football. So I think it's just it's the simplest of, not excuses, but it's like the simplest way to blame what I just recapped for you in 26 minutes is the head coach. Is that there is so much else that goes into a game that Neal Brown is not Geppetto and all of these players are puppets, and he's controlling every single movement, every single decision, everything they absolutely do. He can train these guys up all week. He can put together an awesome strategy, which I've been very critical of over this whole season and, for as long as I've been making these videos. So like going back to the backyard brawl of last year, that I can be critical of his strategy and how he wants to play and this, that, and the other thing. But just what I'll say is, and like, I don't want to bring politics into sports in these videos, is it's just very easy to scream at the top of your lungs, fire Neal Brown. And it seems very similar to the way the Republicans just removed the Speaker of the House and just saying let's get rid of Kevin McCarthy, with absolutely no plan whatsoever after it's being done. So, I can come up here and I can give you 99 different things that I think that West Virginia should do differently. And here's what I'll say, to varying degrees, has this head coach and not the previous head coach, and even before that, the previous coach before that, under Bill Stewart, did they not try all those same kinds of things that so many fans want every single week? I want them to be more aggressively out of the gate and throw the ball downfield and the pass open up the run game. Has Neal Brown and co not thought of that and using that plan? If not, then did Dana Holgorsen try that for so many years, even with 2 stud quarterbacks to varying success in wins and losses? I want them to send more pressure, even if it, means just to sell out the run, leaving the middle of the field completely vulnerable, and West Virginia's vulnerable to get nickeled and dimed. Did Tony Gibson not try that for so many years, throwing so much pressure at opponents and teams still just came up with wins? And that's what I mean to say is I don't necessarily think that it's just these decisions specifically by the head coach, but the coaching staff in general that are the difference in the wins and the losses. We can point to specifically the backyard brawl last year with that call, 6 minutes left to go in the game on 4th and an inch, and you give the ball to C.J. Donaldson. That's an easy case in point. But it just goes to show that there is so much more that goes into winning a football game because you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds in this Gen Z generation. And can you put together a good offensive showing with a defensive showing at the same time for multiple games on end for an entire season? West Virginia has failed to do that, what it seems like, for a decade. So I don't know if you go out there and you spend top 25 money on a new head coach out there, is that going to change? At least I haven't seen that. So for one is, can West Virginia do this as a program? If you're wanting to make a change, if you're like so many other Mountaineer fans out there that I've heard about or heard from, of just pointing all of the blame, everything from every single game, no credit in wins, all the credit in losses, all on Neal Brown. If you remove Neal Brown and insert a new guy, are you just perpetuating the same thing? Or what is the magic answer to this program becoming back what it was from 2005 to 2007? I don't know if that necessarily, is West Virginia in the same kind of stuck in the mud as like a Nebraska out there, who had, even greater heights than West Virginia's ever had, but they're just like a has-been. Or, there's some other case in points that I can give you to certain extents, like Tennessee before last season was in a very much of the same ways. Notre Dame to varying success. I know under Brian Kelly they got to a national championship game. They've been to college football playoffs, this, that, and the other thing, but they haven't reached that same height and same success as they had, years ago under, winning a national title game in the late 80s. So that's just what I mean to say is it's an easy solution to just point anything and everything at the head coach. And I get it. And this is, I guess, way I can wrap this up as discipline, is that this West Virginia team was really criticized in last week's game by so many different people, not just myself, in the Houston game for undisciplined play. You can call it across the board in so many various ways of undisciplined play against Oklahoma State. And ultimately, that discipline then does fall upon the head coach in the way that you train, in the way that you practice, and the way that you execute. So, and the way that you, then strategize. So for that, I can 100% hear that. I can hear that. I can agree with that. I can buy that. And if you want to put that ultimately on the guillotine as to why Neal Brown's head needs to be chopped, completely understand. Completely can buy it and go with it and move forward. And I will support this team because that's just in every fiber of my being, is I'm not going to give up on the Mountaineers. I'm not going to just settle for mediocre or below average. I want to see this program succeed again. I want to see this team challenge for conference championships. It's been over a decade now. And I want to see this team contend at the upper echelon of college football. But I just know that there is so much that goes into it that it just falls beyond the scope of the head coach, that things have to fall right for you. And roster management is part of this, and player recruiting, for one, identification, getting high quality recruits, getting them on there where you're high caliber, high ceiling guys. And then once you get them in, getting them into the program and developing them. And we've seen this, I think case in point with this offensive line is the transformation of it from the beginning of Neal Brown's tenure all the way. They got good recruits. They got in Zach Frazier, in Wyatt Milam, and Doug Nestor, and they've developed, and they're much better. Leap forward better than where they were in 2019. So that's one position group that I'm talking about. That there's more that needs to be done, at the quarterback position, at the receivers positions, across the defense, you name it. That, yes, if you want to put all of the blame, all of the credit in wins and all of the blame in losses, but if you're not going to give him any credit in the wins, it just gets old repetitively. When you just put all of the blame on the head coaches, and discipline is very few of Neal Brown's teams, or not Neal Brown, of Dana Holgerson's teams were well disciplined. If you look at the era of Bill Stewart, he's marred by many of the same issues that West Virginia's offense has gone through these last 4 years, is transitioning over from a spread read option offense to a Jeff Mullen offense. So was that lack of discipline? Look at so many games and close ones. I point out most notably 2006 against Louisville, and how many turnovers that cost the Pat White and Steve Slayton teams. Was that discipline? Was Rich Rodriguez not disciplining these teams enough? So there's a lot that goes into this, and there's a lot of luck involved. So look at TCU now getting drubbed 41-3 after going to a national championship game last year. So I think if Neal Brown and staff can take this next week and simplify things as best they can of what do they do successfully, what struggles can they not necessarily overcome, be due to injuries or this, that, or the other thing, for this season. Regroup. You're on the road at UCF, who played incredibly well and arguably could have beat or should have beaten Oklahoma on the road. Now they're on homecoming. This is a big game for them and for you as a program after they've just now lost 4 straight. So there's got to be a lot of soul searching, I feel like, that in what do they necessarily need to do, strategizing how they need to win a game. What's going to set them up for best success? And is it a continuation of this boxing match approach where you're going to go jab for jab for jab and throw your knockout punches in the fourth quarter when you think they're worn down? Or do you be more aggressive and throw some haymakers in the first and second quarters to try and get up by multiple scores? Just what can you do? What is this team right now? And how do you match up best to just go out there and win a football against? Starting out right there, not looking at the long term, week by week, starting with UCF. At all costs, and that's what happened, I unfortunately feel like, with the TCU game, is it was played to all costs. And just unfortunately, because of one guy on TCU taking out 2 starters on the offensive line, you losing Trey Lathan in that game, you lose Aubrey Burks, then it hurts you for the Houston game. If it's going to cost you that much, what do you need to necessarily do to then win against UCF? So starting there, starting at that point, I think is a good place to start. So that's all I got to say about this game. If you like this recap video, and I want to hear from you, I want to hear from Mountaineer Nation, please leave a comment here on Facebook, or if you want to tweet me at Carson_Fox27 on Twitter. Subscribe to my channel. Love to hear from you. Thanks for connecting. Let's go Mountaineers. Hail West Virginia. And we'll talk again next week.